All of a sudden gets very, very serious. Look at that. Does almost a trapeze lunge away from his holder, and he's underway. Let's see how long he takes before he settles himself into the saddle. Oh, quite quickly. It was up to that rise that Luis Leon Sanchez went, sprinting all the way. And I think Wellens is probably aware that this is going to be a bit of an uphill task and not just that ramp at the beginning. 7th quickest for Chris Froome, but his teammate De La Cruz is top dog at the moment. Dylan van Baarle making it 3 Skymen in the top 10, or indeed the top 7, as you can see. Andre Amador set a good benchmark out there earlier on today as we spin through some of those who perhaps could have expected a little bit more from the day. But really it's about the late runners and what they do. Luis Leon Sanchez on course and attacking it as we speak, waiting for a split with him and staying very close at hand, the camera bike here, maybe offering up a bit of a bow wave. Got to be careful about that and not to cut him out when it comes to the corners. It's quite close. Jakob Fuglsang from Astana, indeed, we were hoping in on there. Sanchez, a little bit earlier, nearly got cut to the ground by the camera bike on the inside. Fuglsang, his teammate, as you can see, is also setting a pace out there. It's much more harried, it seems, from Luis Leon Sanchez, pace-wise. Clearly a question of gearing. We'll get to that in a few moments' time. Just coming up to the crest. And look at the trees here, absolutely dead still as Mikkel Lander just eases into that crest. Brilliant.
Yeah, we're looking at the wind conditions today. Although they've got a slight headwind coming from the left-hand side on this first part of the course, it is relatively light, only around 6 kilometres now, with a few gusts. So the wind's not playing too much of a part today, assisting them on that running. But Luis Leon Sanchez now coming to the top of the climb. He should be swinging left in just a few moments onto that main road, back onto that tarmac that he'll dearly be looking forward to. Out of the saddle, winding that big gear up before he settles back down, gets into that aero tuck and presses home as quickly as he can. And 2 minutes behind him, of course, is Jakob Fuglsang on the road. These two finish starting on the general classification in 4th and 5th positions overall. But I was just looking at last year's results, Colin, of the time trial in this race. It was a similar distance, slightly shorter, 12 kilometres, and Wout Poels actually beat Tim Wellens by 4 seconds. Wout Poels finished in 6th position and Wellens in 7th, but I think with that red jersey on his back, I think it's going to be a very, very different proposition today.
Michael Bezgara comes home and gives away 93 seconds to our leader, 33 in arrears. Well, after that turn by Luis Leon Sanchez, that spoke volumes. If you look at the transition he made into it and just how close he cut the corner, there are white guard lines. You can see them at the side. It marks out where the very edge is, and there's a danger of getting a puncture if you go beyond it because it's quite fractured at the edge. He sailed beyond that white line. He speared the apex of the corner. He didn't want to give away just even a centimetre of road, and that shows his attacking mentality. And Luis Leon Sanchez is really pushing for this. Tim Wellens also coming up to that crest. He'll be on that transition point himself in probably about 8 to 10 minutes' time. But he's on the dirt road at the moment. Last man to set off.
Well, Tim Wellens, extremely good time trialist again. I don't think he's actually won any time trials in his career. Looking back through his results, he was second in the Belgian TT Championships back in 2014, but always is there or thereabouts in the top 10 in all of the stage races that he's ridden, especially these week-long stage races which he specialises in. And this is the finish of Simon Clark's solid ride by the Aussie.
Yeah, very much so. He's always very good at this time of year. I guess with all the home races that grace the top of the season. He carries a lot of form into the some of the classics. As we said before, we expect a lot of him when it comes to races like Milan-San Remo. He's a great all-rounder, solid time trialist as well, as he's just proven.
Indeed. Well, we're just looking again at, here we go, back to Tim Wellens. I bumped into him out training last year in Mallorca. He was out doing one of these long solo rides. He traditionally goes out with the lads from Lotto Soudal in the morning, comes back, has lunch, and then goes out again and does another couple of hours. He really is a mile eater. But I was chatting to him about his position on the bike, and if you look at his bike when he's off it, it's almost the same position as his TT bike. He rides in a very similar position, has the saddle slammed forward, tipped down, and is very much at home riding in a TT position. We see him so many times in those breakaways that we see with such an aggressive rider. We see him in those breakaways with his hands draped over the top of the bars, very much mimicking the position that he has on this TT bike. So for many riders, getting on a TT bike is a bit alien, but for a rider like Tim Wellens, he'll be perfectly comfortable, hardly shuffling around on the saddle at all. He looks really at one with his machine. Very, very effective, very, very powerful indeed, but not too much a difference in between the way he positions himself on his TT bike compared to his road bike.
There is a leeway that's allowed now with the nose angle of your saddle. It used to have to be absolutely horizontal, and for health reasons they said, all right, we'll let you have a few degrees either way.
9 degrees they're allowed now. 9-degree tilt on the road bikes, and that's changed the way that riders hold themselves on their road bikes now. Great ride by Kreuzweig too.
Yeah, it is terrific. This bodes well. Coming up to the top of the season, 35 seconds in arrears, 8th quickest, and that's sitting right next to Chris Froome, I believe, overall. He'll take that, I think. Looks like they lost their official number here.
I think he's got one of the local school children to knock him up a number by the looks of it. Not a bad effort, a little bit of a wonky 2, the 7 not too bad, but yeah, definitely a homemade number there for Mr. Wellens.
I don't know where it went. I don't think he'll get fined for that, but then again, you know, the commissaires, they've got to build up their Christmas fund, haven't they?
Of course they have.
Yes.
It looks to be very well pinned as well, if Dr. Hutch is watching, and sometime commentator in Eurosport and TT extraordinaire. He'll be pretty happy with the pinnage on that one. No flappy numbers, because of course you've got all these aerodynamic elements. The bike is aero, the suit's aero. The last thing you want is a badly pinned number which effectively acts as a sail.
Yeah, they are still pinned as well. Do you remember the pockets, the vinyl pockets that
a few teams do have them built in, don't you? But clearly the leader's skin suit in this race doesn't have one. But no, they're a really, really good idea.
Yes, people were saying, why don't you just peel them and stick them? I don't know, everyone prefers the flexibility of the pin, bizarrely, and it's part of the mantra, I guess, as well. There's a certain pride, isn't there, when you pin on your first pro's number?
It is. I mean, and it is a phrase, pinning on my number for the first race of the year, my last race of my career. There really is something, and pins are still knocking around. They are part and parcel of the pro sport. You thought it would have advanced a little bit, but no, pins are still used. Some races, of course, do have stickers. Vinyl stickers are used in the Tour de France. But here we go, from numbers to numbers.
Oh, it's not going to happen for Luis Leon Sanchez, and David de la Cruz looks great here. Now, this is a question about comparison. 24 seconds down with a 17:35.8. Now, this is going to get crucial. Well, this course has bitten a few, hasn't it? I think the gusty conditions and the mixed terrain, I guess also as it sits so early as part of the season, maybe you're still rolling in some of your skill set, but Luis Leon Sanchez there, I think he'll be disappointed with that.
Yeah, I must admit, Carton, I expected a bit of a quicker ride. But no, you're quite right. This time of year, riders are still testing their form. For many riders, this is their first race. And for most riders, of course, just looking back at what a lot of these riders have ridden, I think this will be their first individual time trial as well, especially being a short one. If it's a 40k one, it's a bit of time to bed yourself in. The effort, although intense, isn't quite as harsh, not quite as brutal, but a brutal short time trial really is a bit of a wake-up call to how you're going. And clearly Sanchez not quite on it. A solid ride by him, but not a stellar one.
Poles, whenever he's on in a situation like this, he always looks, because of his gearing, he looks like he's just cruising and hasn't really invested too much into it. It's a shame we don't have the split times for you on a regular basis. We're at the mercy of our host broadcaster here, I'm afraid. But looking at Mikkel Landa right now, I don't know. Sanchez looked to be fully committed out there. Landa just takes to the metal plate, which they've laid down on the cattle grid here. Thanks heaven for that. I think it's actually a goat grid, but anyway, I don't see too many cows around here, despite the fact that some of them do make an appearance in the bull ring. Well, bulls do. Just skirting it. Here we go. Here's Marc Soler. This is going to be a very good time. Well, the sun is shining upon him. That was superb. A 17:20 for Soler. That's going to put him in the bird seat amongst the favourites. What a great run for the Movistar man.
I thought, again, a talented time trial rider, still young and upcoming, but I think it's one of his best TT performances of his career so far. That's the best ride so far of the riders that have finished in the top 10. 18:01 by Clark, 17:46 for Kreuzweig, 17:35 for Sanchez. Marc Soler with a
Shave of the corner, and that was Luis Leon Sanchez's corner that we were talking about a little bit earlier on, and Wout Poels is not taking any prisoners out there as well. The question is, how close do they get to Solaire's time?
Well, I must admit, Wout Poels is looking very, very good at turning a bigger gear than we're used to seeing him spinning on the climbs. Looks very, very good, taking that racing line, shaving that corner, just keeping to that white line, shortening those corners as you would expect. Looking very, very smooth indeed. Wout Poels, not a bad time trialist at all. Where are the time checks though? He's not there in the top 10 on the time check. Still Steph Clement with the fastest split.
There he is.
Where is Poels? 8th. Same time as Luis Leon Sanchez, but Poels has won a time trial in his pro career. He won the time trial in the Tour of Valencia in 2016. That was a short and punchy distance, and his last time trial of note was 7th place in the Vuelta time trial back last year.
Well, ahead of Sanchez, Poels was 9 seconds clear of him overall. So 11 seconds down on Tim Wellens. The question is, this new spanner in the works as far as the names that we've been really dwelling on. Solaire's finishing time was superb. What about Fuglsang? Well, look at that, nowhere near Marc Soler, and Marc Soler is looking like a very good finisher for this race. 30 seconds in arrears of De La Cruz with a 17:41. Gosh, it's all kicking off.
Well, looking at that, it looks like Marc Soler might just jump above Jakob Fuglsang on the general classification. He's beaten Fuglsang there by 20 seconds, or 21 seconds in fact. Yeah, 21 seconds, so just jumps above him on the GC. Yeah,
remarkable. Well, now it gets even more spirited, or indeed the requirement for a spirited performance from Wout Poels, Landa and Wellens. I wonder if Landa can pull out a stellar performance here and make the snatch. Great day for Movistar, no matter what, with Marc Soler vaulting up overall because of his finish here. He's starting to take a few big names out. Let's see if that happens. Tim Wellens is the last man on the road. Yeah,
we haven't got a time split for Tim Wellens, which is quite interesting. No indication of his intermediate split for Wellens, unless he was outside the top 10, because we only saw the first 10 riders. So the split screen at the moment is Mikel Landa on your right-hand side, wearing number 1, and Tim Wellens on the left. But a great ride by Marc Soler, the standout performance, the fastest rider so far in the top 10 to finish.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. What can Landa do? He's first to go aero on his time trialing bike. Haven't seen anyone else do this so far today. Clearly happy with the cruise. I'm not sure whether he should be driving this.
Well, this is on obviously the downhill section of the course. Maybe he hasn't got a big enough gear on board. That's why he's got into the aero tuck as Wout Poels heads into the finishing straight.
Good finish as well. Look at this. Very, very accomplished finish by Wout Poels. 11 seconds only in arrears for De La Cruz. A 17:22. That was good. 17:22 for Wout Poels, and don't forget, in front of Soler. Gosh, it's going to be so tight between those two. There was only 21 seconds between them before they came to this.
Yeah, so Soler won't jump above Wout Poels, but he has jumped above Jakob Fuglsang. So Wout Poels holding steady in terms of the GC at the moment. So the two riders out on the road still yet to finish, Landa and Wellens. What has Wellens got in the tank? What has Landa got left as well?
Soler and Poels separated at the line here by 22 seconds. They were separated by 21 seconds overall. Gosh, it's very tight between them, Matt.
It is indeed. It certainly is. It's going to be well, a big shuffle on the podium. Tim Wellens, I would no doubt be fully aware of the times that have been done. His director sport, the kind of benefit of finishing, of starting further down the field is you will get time checks. And look at the team car getting right behind Mikel Landa there. That bow effect coming into play there. Landa again running out of gears on this section. I wonder if he's got the right gear choice. Tailwind finish downhill makes you think that the mechanics were putting on maybe 56, 58 chainring at the front of the bike with 11 on the back. But Landa going full aero.
There's a dinner plate up there, isn't there, for him to play with? Let's see. Mikel Landa still cruising and not driving it. Questions about gearing. What about Wellens still hugging that line at the moment? This is a fascinating finale we've got here. And Soler putting a cat amongst the pigeons and making them think out there, and does as well. Poels has finished 17:22. Soler finished in the 17:20, so there was 22 seconds between them at the finish, and the gap overall between the pair of them, to my rudimentary maths, was 21 seconds. 22? What do you reckon, Matt?
Well, we shall soon find out. I think Solid at 20 and Walpole's the 22, so 2 seconds is the gap on the day. Yeah,
my,
2 seconds.
My maths is spinning away from me.
You've had a busy day. You've had a busy day. We've all had a busy, but no, only 2 seconds. So at the moment, Walpole's is in pole position. Don't know what the time of Lander's going to be. No indication. I think Lander was outside the top 10 on that intermediate split, but it won't be very long before the finishing straight opens out. Remember, these last few riders, the last 10 riders in fact, starting at 2-minute intervals. That's why we've got this delay between finishing. But a great time by Poles, great time by Marc Soler. Will those 2 riders end up on the podium?
Lander, what have you got? Goodbye, I'm afraid. Oh, 49 seconds down. It's not going to be a fairy tale for him. So Wout Poels, apologies for my maths a few moments ago, in pole position. But what a great finish by Marc Soler, and I'm afraid a disappointing one by Mikel Lander. Tim Wellens then remains to finish the remains of the day, I guess you might say, at the end of this one. What can Tim do to put this fire out?
Well, looking at the we're going to hopefully go through the kilometre. Well, there's the kilometre. I don't think he's going to test the time of De La Cruz, which is 17:11. Remember, it's going to finish just outside of that, but I think it's going to be a very, very fast time indeed. He's put, I think, nearly a minute into Mikel Lander, so a solid time by Wellens. Is it going to be enough?
What's his target time, considering the deficit and what's been achieved by those out there?
Well,
Matt?
He has a buffer on the general classification over Lander, who doesn't really matter. Lander has fallen away. He has an 11 seconds advantage over Wout Poels. Remember, Wout Poels finished in at 17:22, so basically he needs to finish 11 seconds within the time of Wout Poels, so he's looking at least 17:33 is the time, so 17:31 is the time he needs to beat.
There we are, and you watch the clock at the moment. Thanks, Matt. There's your target time. Here is the grand finale. He may well just do this. 17:31. I think he may just come home in time. He's going to do it. Tim Wellens. Oh, 14 seconds adrift. What did we say? That's the best time so far. And in fact, best time today. Tim Wellens may not be a noted time trialist. That may not be the first thing you think of. But given the chance to make it count, Matt, and he has done exactly that.
He certainly has. A very, very respectable time by Tim Wellens after his exploits yesterday on that climb. Finishes safely inside the top 10, but loses 3 seconds to Wout Poels. But that isn't enough for Poels to take the overall. Subject to confirmation, of course. I think my maths is roughly right. I think we see Tim Wellens has won the overall there. What a superb ride by the Belgian.
Well, my maths is roughly terrible today. Apologies. But Tim Wellens, what an absolutely magnificent run it proved to be by him.
Nobody could beat this man, could they? 17:11. What a time.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Well, we've had some fun today. And it's been a joy to see Tim Wellens come home in such good form. He looked amazing relaxed at the top of the day.
He did. He looked really, really chilled out. Very relaxed indeed. Did the job. And another man that did the job. Bit of a surprise performance, I think.